What are some discipline and regulations that Islam reveals in regards to intimacy between husband and wife? These are the comprehensive ayat that deal with that subject. We have more access to filthy things than any society ever before us. We just have access to this stuff, And as a result of that, the perversion inside one's family life is very easy. That we actually see images on TV and they start controlling or start influencing what we think intimacy between a man and a woman should be like. And we start avoiding the restrictions that Allah Azza wa Jal has put on us. Actually, these perversions and these deviations, and the worst of them, of course, is the industry, right? These perversions, what they do is they take human beings away from the fitrah. When your shame, when your dignity that Allah has granted you is destroyed. Because these filthy images, these shameless images, they destroy your sense of shame. They kill the spirituality inside a person. Their fitrah dies. And when that dies, then, they no longer have, you don't even have respect for yourself when you're watching images like that, much less to have respect for your spouse or anybody else. You start looking, I was talking a couple of days ago to a group of youth in New York, and I was telling them, once people get addicted to this kind of thing, then the young man, he doesn't even see a woman, he just sees a piece of flesh walking by. That's all he sees. Just like an animal looks at another female animal. It's just like prey. They're checking everyone out, just physically. That's all they are, is physical bodies walking around, worthy of checking out. And you just become this complete pervert that has no sense of dignity for another human being. And, when you're in that state, then marriage is not your solution, by the way. Marriage is not, if you're a pervert before marriage, you're a pervert after marriage. You have to protect your dignity before you go into your marriage, because otherwise you're going to ruin what is supposed to be a beautiful relationship between the husband and the wife. Anyhow, so فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. And don't go near them until they become pure. طَهُرَ in Arabic, this is the fa'ula form of the verb, which is interesting because it actually means of something to become something, to be something in and of itself. It's used for inherent qualities. Like they say, karuma, to be honored. Karuma is used to be honored. Ba'uda, to be far away. It's an inherent quality. It's not something that's attained. It's not something that you acquire. So it's, the beauty of the word is, فَإِذَا حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, until they become pure again in and of themselves. In other words, Allah Azza wa Jal, by using this word, describes women as inherently pure. And they go temporarily, through a period of impurity. And He didn't even call it impurity. He didn't call it najas at the time. What did He call it? Adhan, pain. And this is again an honoring of women, even in this period, that Allah called it pain. And of course, that pain could be physical, psychological, emotional, all kinds of pain. So, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ, but it's not spelled out. They ask you about the period of impurity. They don't ask you what they should do with their women it's not spelled out. Just they ask you about the period of impurity. And then Allah does not go out explicitly to explain, let me tell you how that works, but actually it's painful. It's pain itself. That's it. فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ. And then stay away. I'tizal actually means to avoid someone and stay away from them. This is the word used in Surah Al-Kahf when the young people were to stay away. Get away from everybody, get away from society and go far away. فَاعْتَزِلُوا فَإِذَا اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. Right? So Allah says, فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاء, stay far away from the women. But actually you have to understand this in the context of the ayah. It's talking about the intimacy between husband and wife. When it comes to that, stay away. Don't even try to cross that line. You will get carried away and you'll make a big mistake. So in that sense, stay away. You don't recite this ayah to your wife and say, this week I'm staying in a hotel, or you get a restraining order, religious restraining order from your فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ. That's not what this means. Some ulama in our past, interestingly enough, did take it very, very literally, and they wouldn't even go near their wife, for any purpose, in that time. But actually that's an extreme position. Normally speaking, the idea is that you avoid that level of intimacy with the spouse at that time, fil mahid. Then when they make the effort to purify themselves, the different pattern is used. It's not فَإِذَا طَهُرْنَا. It's فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا. It's تَفَعَّلَ. And تَفَعَّلَ has an effort in it. In other words, they take ghusl, they wash up, etc. تَطَهَّرْنَا. Then فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهِ. Then approach them. مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهِ. And even then further, describing this act, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, approach them from where Allah commanded you. And I'm not going to spell that out for you. Because the beauty of it is Allah didn't spell that out for you. The beauty of it is, إِنَّ الَّبِيبُ فِي هَذَا السِّيَاقَ الْمُؤْمِنِ مِنَ الْإِشَارَةِ يَفْهَمُ. The believer understands, he can take a hint. فَأْتُهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهِ. Don't be perverted in the intimacy between yourself and your spouse. Approach them from where Allah commanded you. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ. No doubt Allah loves those who make tawbah repeatedly. Oh my goodness. The ayah hasn't even finished yet and Allah is taking you back to tawbah. You just had, and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam teaches us that act of love, the physical love between the husband and the wife, is an act of ibadah. It's an act of worship. And yet, because it's one of the great joys of life, it's one of the, and for any human being, it's one of the great temptations of life. And Allah has given us a halal avenue to pursue that. Now that Allah has given you that ni'mah, right after that ni'mah, instead of mentioning shukr, Allah mentions tawbah. Inna Allah yuhibbu at-tawwabin. And the other thing about this beautiful ayah is that Allah could have used the word yuhibbu once. He could have said, Inna Allah yuhibbu at-tawwabina wal-mutatahhirin. Allah loves those who make tawbah and those who make an attempt to cleanse themselves continuously. But He mentioned love separately for the people who do tahara, who cleanse themselves. Why? To highlight, just like tawbah is a very important aspect, repentance is a very important aspect of spiritual cleansing. Physically remaining pure. Physically being pure. Being in the state of wudu. Not having najas on our clothes. Going to the bathroom carefully. There are two things that if they are inside a marriage, if you maintain two things inside a marriage, then you'll have a beautiful marriage. If the husband and spouse encourage each other towards tawbah, and the husband and wife encourage each other to remain pure. And Allah does not undermine the importance of the physical relationship the physical love between husband and wife. That is an important aspect of marriage. Unfortunately, in our society, either there's a complete lack of it, because we have such a taboo in some traditional cultures where the intimacy between husband and wife, after you reach a certain age, it's nahi buri baat hai. That sort of thing, it's like disrespectful, you can't have intimacy between husband and wife, we're too old for that now, that sort of thing. It's unnecessary formality. And on the other hand, there's no limits. There's no restrictions. And these are both extremes. And the husband expecting too much from the wife and just treating her like, like a commodity. These are unhealthy extremes. So a healthy balance has to be maintained between the needs, the physical needs of a husband, the physical needs of a wife, but also the spiritual and the emotional needs. And those things come together when we really become conscious of the fact that even this most intimate act, when Allah Azza wa Jal described the closest part of it, Allah said, Min haythu amarakumullah, from where Allah commanded you. Like Allah is in between this relationship, you better not forget that Allah allowed this relationship to happen. That you better remember you're not an authority as a husband, that Allah Azza wa Jal is the authority. And may Allah Azza wa Jal help us become better husbands.
The crazy thing that happens is, husbands are reading about what husbands deserve, and wives are reading about what wives deserve. As opposed to the opposite. Husbands are supposed to be reading about what? What the wives deserve. But everybody's obsessed with themselves. The principle, the underlying principle in marriage, as it is in everything else in this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you worry about your obligations and you forget about your rights. I know that sounds very harsh. But if you can do that, experiment it for 6 months. Forget about your rights, worry about your obligations. What can I do for my wife? What more can I do for her? Can I buy her a gift? I haven't given her anything for a long time. If she makes a mistake, pretend like she didn't even make it, right? وَإِن تَصْفَحُوا وَتَغْفِرُوا تَعْفُوا وَتَصْفَحُوا. Tasfahu means cover the page. When you cover a page, you can't see the previous page, right? So if your wife makes a mistake, you pretend like you don't even see it, right? Instead of bringing it up and again with this, So you cover her mistakes and you go out of your way to fulfill your side of the obligations. You go out of your way to show sabr and compassion and overlooking, and even the hurtful comments, you don't respond to them except with a smile, etc., etc. You go out of your way to do your part. Because when you start expecting, you expect certain things from your wife. She should take care of me. I have physical needs. I have psychological needs. She should give me company. She should be nicer to me. She should smile when I come home from work instead of frowning at me all the time and reminding me what groceries I didn't do or what laundry I forgot to finish, right? She should be nicer to me. There's always these expectations in your head. And the believer, who does he expect from? The believer expects from his Lord, right? Because everyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disappoint your expectations. ضَعُفَ الطَّالِبُ وَالْمَطْلُوبُ is a universal principle Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed. The one who seeks, the one who demands is weak, has been weakened. And whatever he seeks has also been weakened, inherently weak. So long as you place any hopes in creation, you are necessarily going to be disappointed. All the great tragedies that happen in the Muslim community that people don't even want to talk about because they sound so disgusting, where did they start? They start from a husband not taking care of the wife, and a wife not taking care of the husband. So this is at the heart of being a believer and sustaining our iman. Taking care of the wife and taking care of the husband. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the best husbands and grant us the best wives.